So this Kathleen Kennedy contract situation is getting pretty interesting, and I haven't been talking about it for a while. I kind of let go of the whole situation. I kind of accepted defeat in the fact that Kathleen Kennedy would most likely return to Star Wars, and you know what, it is what it is. That's what I thought anyway, but now the situation is getting very interesting, and I think no one can deny that. I don't think even the people who are so confident and the most confident that Kathleen Kennedy will return, and even the people who love Kathleen Kennedy and want her to return, I think even they have to start questioning what's going on here. I think that something's definitely changed, or maybe things are just going wrong with the contract negotiations. Something is happening, because there's a lot of things happening at Disney. There's a lot of things that they're not announcing that are happening that we can just kind of infer. That's really suggesting that something's going wrong with these negotiations, or maybe that Kathleen Kennedy just won't return in general. What I'm talking about today is, if you remember back, if you followed this situation the last time this happened, the last time Kathleen Kennedy's contract got renewed, they announced the renewal around 9 or 10 days before the contract was actually supposed to, expire or run out or whatever you want to call it. And now, her contract this time around, the same thing is happening. A lot of people are reporting that Kathleen Kennedy is leaving, as you can see by articles like this. A lot of people are saying that Kathleen Kennedy is staying, and that's a good thing, like this article right here. A lot of different YouTubers saying, the total opposite of each other, saying that they have sources and that Kathleen Kennedy is staying, or they have sources and Kathleen Kennedy is leaving. We all know the story, and nobody really knows who to believe now. But last time around, like I said, around 9 or 10 days before the contract was supposed to end, her contract got announced to be renewed. And now it's the same thing happening. Now everyone, just like last time, everyone's doing the same thing, claiming they have sources, and then, we don't know if they're lying, we don't know if they're telling the truth. On both sides, we don't know who's telling the truth. The same exact thing is happening, except this time, her contract was supposed to end on October 30th or 31st. Every time I ask people, if it's the 30th or 31st, I get different answers, or they say that they don't know. So I don't know the exact date, but it's kind of irrelevant at this point, because it's either October 30th or October 31st. And I'm recording this video on November 1st, and the contract is still not announced to be renewed. That is kind of telling, in my opinion. Even if that doesn't mean that she's staying at Lucasfilm or leaving Lucasfilm, even if it doesn't say anything about that, I definitely think that that says something about them having some sort of issues with the negotiations. Maybe she wants more money. Maybe, Bob Chapek came out and said that he's not doing these long-term contracts with these studio heads anymore, and that includes Kevin Feige and Kathleen Kennedy. He's not doing these 3-4 year contracts anymore. He's going to do 1.5, maybe 2 year contracts, and that's it. That's the max. Maybe she wants a longer term contract. Maybe she wants 5 more years and to, solidify her retirement with Lucasfilm, stuff like that. Or maybe she wants more money and she's going to hold out, because like I said, there's things like this happening where, the contract announcement isn't made yet that it got renewed. Not saying that means that she's leaving, but I think it definitely is telling. And there's also things happening at Disney that they are straight up announcing, like the Indiana Jones 5 movie getting delayed an entire year. And we know that Kathleen Kennedy is heavily involved in that production, that Indiana Jones is her franchise. That's her baby. She cares about that way more than she cares about Star Wars, which I guess, isn't hard. But she definitely cares about Indiana Jones a lot, and she definitely cares about Indiana Jones 5 a lot. Every single time we see pictures of the set, she's included. She's always on that set, so she definitely cares about that movie a lot. Maybe they delayed it because she's holding out on her contract negotiations. Maybe she said, you know what, you give me this amount of money, or I'm not going to work, and so you do. Or maybe they just straight up said, you know what, if you want that much money, you're not really doing your job that well anyway when it comes to Star Wars. Maybe they just said, you know what, we're just going to let you go and look for another studio head, and we'll have to delay this movie until we get a new studio head and see where they want to go with it. Maybe that is the case. I don't know. I'm not saying that it is. I'm not saying that I have inside sources. None of that stuff. I'm just saying it definitely is a possibility now, after me and a lot of other YouTubers just kind of accepting defeat on the situation, especially after that Mikey Sutton article came out, because he's usually pretty accurate in his reports. And he said that he looked into this whole Kathleen Kennedy situation and found absolutely nothing. He said there was nothing to see here, pretty much. He said all these people are saying that she's going to be fired, but he looked into the situation. He tapped into his sources, which, like I said, usually pretty reliable. Mikey Sutton is usually at Geekosity. They're usually pretty reliable in their sources and their leaks and their reports. And he said there's nothing to see here. She's going to be renewed. But maybe there's just nothing to see here because both sides accepted the fact that they don't want to be renewed. Maybe Kathleen Kennedy doesn't want to be at Star Wars or Lucasfilm anymore. Who would? She's been getting attacked ever since 2015. It's kind of gotten worse over time, because 2015, a lot of people did enjoy The Force Awakens, but then 2017 came around, Last Jedi came out, nobody liked it, or a lot of people didn't like it. It was very, very divisive. So they had a lot of people that did like it, a lot of people that didn't like it, and they were kind of at war, and that led to people just straight up attacking Kathleen Kennedy because she is the head of Lucasfilm, and it just seemed like it had to be her fault. It seemed like the trilogy was rushed up until that point. It seemed like there was no outline, no story. And we all know that that ended up being the truth. And that does, not completely fall on Kathleen Kennedy, but she is the head of Lucasfilm. And a lot of people are saying that if Kathleen Kennedy is fired, it doesn't change anything. But I think it definitely does change something in the minds of Star Wars fans, especially because it is kind of a signal or a sign that things are changing going forward. Now, we already know that, the content is getting a lot better with the Book of Boba Fett coming out, and then we have Obi-Wan coming out. We have Andor and Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, who already, proved themselves with Mando season 1 and 2. They're heavily involved in all these projects, so that's always going to be a good thing. But at the same time, we still have stuff coming out like the High Republic, which I haven't read. I've read like the first half of the first book that came out, and it wasn't horrible, but I just wasn't impressed. I wasn't impressed enough to keep reading. So I haven't really looked at any of the comics other than whenever something goes viral because it's so stupid, like a rock, being a main character in one of the comics or one of the books or whatever. Geode is just so stupid, and apparently that was Claudia Gray's boyfriend's idea. I don't know what's going on with that thing, but a lot of people aren't enjoying the High Republic that I've talked to. But at the same time, I know that a lot of people do enjoy the High Republic. What I'm trying to say is the Mandalorian season 1 and 2 are pretty much universally liked or loved by Star Wars fans. Most people, I would say probably 99% of the people liked The Mandalorian so far, and those guys who made that show are working on the future Star Wars projects, but we still have Kathleen Kennedy and her disciples with Pablo Hidalgo and all those other people who are working on the stuff like the High Republic and then stuff like the Acolyte. How are you going to hire Leslie Headland and then let her hire people who have never worked on Star Wars, not never worked on Star Wars, have never seen Star Wars, have never even seen a Star Wars movie before they're hired to make Star Wars content, to write for Star Wars content, not just work on it, not just a cinematographer who knows, the science behind getting a good looking shot. Nope, they're writing Star Wars and have never seen Star Wars before. How are you going to let that happen? That's the kind of stuff that's just so questionable when it comes to Kathleen Kennedy. She makes such good moves when it comes to hiring Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, putting them together, letting them run free with The Mandalorian season 1 and 2, letting them create their entire own universe, and then promoting Dave Filoni, and then hiring Leslie Headland and letting Leslie Headland hire a writer who has never seen Star Wars before. You can't make this stuff up. And people wonder why we don't like Kathleen Kennedy. It's because she just makes brain dead mistakes like that after she does really good stuff. Like right here, this picture is great. She brought back Ewan McGregor. She brought back Hayden Christensen. Got to give her credit. But at the same time, she's done so many dumb mistakes, man. And it's just frustrating. And I think that a lot of people are out there saying that it doesn't matter if Kathleen Kennedy leaves. I disagree totally. I think that's a sign that Lucasfilm is moving forward with people who truly care about Star Wars, the creative integrity behind Star Wars. People like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, obviously, they won't be the studio head. But regardless of who they get, I think it just is a sign that they want to make Star Wars better, that they want to make Lucasfilm better, and that Kathleen Kennedy just didn't cut it, and they are listening to the fans now. There's been so many other signs that I can't list in this video because it would be too long, but there's so many signs, like Luke Skywalker being on the front page of StarWars.com. We haven't seen that in so long. And in the paragraphs that they wrote about Luke Skywalker, when he was on the front page, it was saying stuff like how great of care they have to take with the character, how careful they have to be because of how much the fans love the character, and they have to make sure that they stay true to the character going forward. That's obviously them saying, you know what, we recognize our mistake with the sequel trilogy, and we recognize how well The Mandalorian season 2 did Luke Skywalker, and going forward we'll make sure that we do the same thing with Luke every single time he pops up. There's so many small things like that points towards them making a big change, and I think Kathleen Kennedy leaving Star Wars or not extending her contract would be the #1 sign of that. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Kathleen Kennedy will be leaving, or do you think, like this article says, Kathleen Kennedy is not leaving and that is a good thing? Let me know what you think in the comments. I think that this situation is getting pretty weird. Like I said, make your own decision. Let me know what you think. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to follow me on Twitter, links to that in the description as well. Thank you for watching the video. Hope to see you in the next one.